Hello and welcome, and let's take a look at some Litecoin on multiple time frames, and we'll do it with the cross against Bitcoin. Currently trading at about 2.1% of the price of Bitcoin at the 0.02108 handle at this current time frame. Throughout the day, it stabilized within the 208 to 207. If you see this movement, basically what it means is the ask prices were pretty much up here and the bid prices were pretty much down there for that period of time. So when the price hit the upper end, that means somebody pushed the buy button and an ask price would go down. And you oftentimes would see variances on like this Bittrex exchange, like 207.7 would be the sell order and the buy order to be like 207.2. And I've even seen wilder differences than that consistently stay for decent periods of time within the bid-ask ratio. So that's what that would mean. On the 15-minute time frame, what we're seeing is the price action here. On the, how long ago was this? Yesterday at 7 p.m., basically about 1 day ago, the price action got up to this point. And then, of course, sold off and has now had a retest of previous high. It has barely pierced above it, and it is now currently stabilizing within it. It is at that test of previous level. Short-term support in at the 208 handle. Let's take a look at more time frames. Let's move on to 45 minutes. Actually, well, that's 400. We'll go to that in a little while. So furthermore, we can even just see here, it's had a lot of tests of this level. There was the move down here, which had big resistance at 0.0198. It did not come back to that level. It came back to a higher point. Maybe one might say, well, normally markets in this type of spot would come back to where it came from. Well, buyers didn't wait until then, or they got a little active even earlier, or sellers weren't too aggressive as the prices got a little cheaper. However you want to look at it, it got lower a little higher than one might say it could do so. It stayed above the 18 average of lows, stayed and held above it. It can go below it. See, when I say stay and hold above a particular area, that's for situations like that. Going below it, but obviously it didn't stay. Right now, the market is staying above the 18 average of highs within this time frame. We can see this level of resistance at around 205 and change, 205.6 area, up to about 208.2 is the last area for which it came from. Let's continue to go even higher in the time frame. We'll go to the, we'll say the 2-hour chart. And we see all these lines. These lines I drew in before the market was even moving to these prices as Fibonacci upside targets. I called it Fibonacci upside theory based on how I calculated it. Well, based on this high and this low, this area represents a 38.2% correction. Not exactly, but pretty much in the near area. This one up here around the 226 represents, again, in the near area, a 61.8% correction. And this one here would represent that of a 76.4. Therefore, we've seen a lot of tests within these points. I mean, a lot here at 212. This is just magnificent how much it has been doing it. But we can also see a little bull face formation where from the start of this pattern, February the 17th, down through the 19th, straight down. A nice up move. You could, I mean, it was sideways from here to here, but of course that's the curve lower end of the bowl where it's neutral, we'll say. And then it's been in this pattern of an uptrend where on this rally here that brought it up to the 204 handle. About, well, there's 6 or 7 periods multiplied 2, over half a day of going sideways, a nice little small gain, coming back and supporting where it did again, but then it continued to support the 18 average of highs and has finally broken through that level. So then, this little point here, the 217 handle, I would give if, I'm just going to remove it because it's really not as needed anymore. So we'll be looking at the next two levels, of course, coming in at 222 and then this one here. And I'm going to remove this line as well. So then let's continue on further. Let's move this onto the 4-hour time frame. And at this stage, I'm really not going to need these lines anymore. So when I move it to the next time frame will be the 400 minute, which represents like about double that. I will use a different exchange that doesn't have these lines, at the Poloniex one. But we're basically saying similar to the same thing, that bowl-shaped formation. We're seeing within this time frame, or at least with more data, that the resistance that surrounded this market from February 3rd through the 13th is the area in which it has supported. So market came back to where it came from, and of course now going up towards, we'll be looking to make a move to the previous high level. So then I'm going to switch the exchange and move this onto the 400-minute time frame next. And when we talk about that bull happy face formation that I was recently showing on the shorter term time frames, well, we could almost see how it's possibly forming into the same level. At least the plan here, seeing after this beautiful green candle up, it had 3 of them just consolidating at the lower end. A situation in here where it had a failed breakdown of small proportions. But again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever periods of going sideways, that's a little more than a day. And it has obviously now gotten above the pattern of just consolidating and making levels not seen since several periods ago back on February the 20th. Expanding out the periods again a bit more, it's holding these multiple key areas where we switch this over to the daily chart. We've had the situation, and we're going to see more of resistance where it was close to the 0.02 handle, as it had this level of resistance after this big move, and it stayed in a sideways consolidation. Just because there is a tremendous amount of gap fill room area after a big move up doesn't necessarily mean every single time it's going to hit. And when you have a move of this nature, you see how this level of resistance is being supported in here. It's being supported with the 18 average band as well. And price action would be in the case of obviously looking pretty good. You're at the 18 average of highs. Also, I'm going to just quickly, just for S and giggles, put in the 7-day moving average. Although technically speaking, I don't think I need to. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, yeah, it's rising. It's probably above it. One of the things I was doing recently was stating when the market has a rising, or it's above the 7-day, 14, or 7-day, 21, and 63-day average, which it obviously is, then it's in its phenomenal best time to play the market. I did the studies on this code and Bitcoin's code throughout its history. On average, you're looking at gaining 1% by holding Litecoin on days where it's above those 3 moving averages. So basically all averages in an uptrend, and yeah, that's looking like a good situation for why it has a good chance of having decent sized forward gains. Moving this on to the 3-day chart, as we see the action within the 18 average on this point of view, stabilizing within it. It had left the 18 average on this point, had a small break higher but noticeable, a statement move more than anything, as consolidated within the band. Of course, it's got a green candle. So multiple times hit here, as I've stated before on this, every single time that it hit these highs before, it had very sharp sudden sell-offs. And here it had a small sell-off and mainly the entire move market correcting through time, which resulted in holding and staying above significantly high areas in which it was unable to do so during its previous time it was there. And when it did stay above it for an okay time in here, it obviously was unable to break through. And of course, this pattern from where it comes from looking so much better. I've also talked about these, how the failed moves have worked within these markets to bring this. And when you have the straight up move go sideways like this, just a beautiful situation to see. And finally, the weekly time frame, lifting off from its 18 average as well after dipping below it for a little bit, showing more on the failed move down here. This here was an interesting day in 2015, I guess, for anyone who had extremely low buy orders in. But we'll ignore that and notice after the long decline, great move higher. So after it does such, you wanted to see it hold and stay above some key area from in here, which you could have seen resistance at the 009 level. So one would assume just by looking at this that it would, if it was going to go higher in any good moves, it would, you'd like to see it stay above that point there. And of course now bringing it back through time, let's do that now. That's exactly what it's done. So staying and holding above a key level after making a move to these big points before. So retesting highs, because that's where Bitcoin, or excuse me, Litecoin against Bitcoin started, was at around the 0.023 handle, falling down. Then in the summer of 2015, it goes down there with the extensive fall. And that's why you want to hold it decently above in this key area of what you'd see resistance in here. So the big move that came down did exactly that. And it has been holding these key areas like this, both long term and then of course within the short term analysis, it's been holding it very well. Mathematically speaking, or not mathematically, but to me everything's math, but when a situation pattern like this gets going and you've seen how you've had moves like this, you've had a move like this, even this move, every single time Litecoin goes, it goes pretty good. So the last 4 periods on the weekly chart have had decent sized green candles. It almost looks like it's ready to set up what has a decent chance to have some spectacular plays to the upside. I would not want to be much of a seller anywhere from like 254 up to about, I would think, 325 or definitely up to 300 anyway. It'll probably just blast through it, but it'll be interesting within around the 35, 36 handle when it becomes to a point where the mathematics states we should see the next level of resistance, because I have seen so many times levels that are supposed to be just blast through it, and it wouldn't surprise me if this was one of those examples, especially just based on what I see with its historical moves that it's had on the upside and the pattern formation on how it's had this sideways wedge from over the last 9 or 10 months since the big rally of about 1 year ago. All right then. Thank you for tuning in and have yourself a magnificent day. Bye-bye.